Hey, what's up guys? Thanks for stopping by the channel. So in this video, we're going to be reviewing this Seiko SPB147. And this is one of those dive watches that is a reissue of their original 62 mass diver. I believe that this falls in with what they consider the 63 mass catalog. And I really enjoy this particular colorway on the 147 because it's got these nice warm tones to it that really help it make it feel like a vintage inspired everyday dive watch. And not only because of a colorway, but because of the dimensions. And when you also throw this on this beautiful strap code Jubilee style bracelet, this watch really does feel like it came out of the 80s or early 90s era. Now I should mention that if you purchase this watch new, it does come on this Seiko silicone rubber strap, which is actually quite supple, and I enjoy the Seiko branded buckle and the metal sliding keeper that comes with the strap. But again, I was looking for more of a vintage inspired diver, and that's why this pairing just seems to work so well. I will link this strap code Angus J bracelet in the description of the video. And I should also mention that retail price for this watch on the rubber strap comes in at right around $1,000 US, but of course that's retail and you can likely get it a little bit cheaper if you ask nicely at your AD or on the gray market. So let's quickly look at the case dimensions and then we'll go over some of the actual specifications for this diver. I measure a 40.6 millimeter case diameter. And then flipping the watch to the side, lug to lug between my thumbs right here, comes in at about 47.5 millimeters. Note the nice curve to these lugs, and there are drilled lug openings too. So if you want to swap out this bracelet for multiple straps, very quick and easy to do. Total case height, I measure at 13.8 millimeters at its thickest point, and that's from the bottom of the screwed down case back. That has a bit of a protrusion for the Seiko Tsunami Wave, and then to the top of this slightly domed sapphire crystal, which I do believe carries some anti-reflective treatment based on the blue hue that the glass throws out sometimes. And of course, the lug opening for this bracelet is an even 20 millimeters. And I also have to tell you guys, this watch is an absolute strap monster if you want to go from wearing a bracelet to different types of straps. Just the proportions and how it wears on the wrist is very comfortable, and it looks great with different options. Now there are a few different colorways for the 63 mass catalog that are a little bit more austere and maybe don't have as much warmth or character as this copper style dial that has a subtle sunburst effect to it. Now I also like how crisp the text is printed on the dial. Although the color they chose for the printed text does blend in with the dial a bit, so it's not always legible in lower lighting situations. In terms of the hour markers, they appear to be applied rectangles that have a nice gilt polished surround to them, and you can see that there's a double rectangle at the 12 o'clock position to aid in orientation. And then at the 3 o'clock position, you have a very simple date cutout, and also a truncated rectangle that just helps comply with the new diver's ISO standard for having a loomed hour marker at each of the cardinal positions. Now the handset itself also has some of the accrued or patinaed looking loom. The hour and the minute hand are highly polished, and then the seconds hand is actually nicely brushed. And you can see at the tip of the seconds hand, it also has a small rectangle with a loom plot that's also there. Now, speaking of a loom, Seiko uses their Lumibright technology, although I was a little bit surprised because that's normally a very bright and intense green color. This one is more of an off blue or teal type of color, but the potency of their loom is always great. You're not going to have any issues reading this diver in the dark. And you can see that even the triangle at the 12 for the bezel has a nice loom pip to it as well. Now speaking of that bezel, it's a very nice coin edge style bezel to this watch, and I really like how it's nicely separated from the mid case. So gripping it is easy. This bezel is 120 clicks unidirectional. This one is actually a little bit tighter than a lot of Seiko bezels I've tried, but it's got that same muted or dampened intermediate clicky feel to it. That said, the alignment on this is almost perfect. I would say it's about 95% there. I'm glad that Seiko did not include a chapter ring on this particular diver, so you have a less OCD when trying to line up the bezel with the actual hour markers. Now the insert for the bezel appears to be brushed stainless steel, and they probably used some sort of DLC or hardened coating to it. I do believe that there is Seiko's proprietary dia shield on the 316L stainless steel case. Now the case itself is very nicely finished. It's well brushed on the side of the watch, including the unsigned crown, but then you have nice polished bevels that extend all the way from the transition point of one lug to the other side of a lug. The hoods of the case are nicely radially brushed. The crown is a nice diameter at 6.4 millimeters. It is obviously screwed down to help with the diver's rated 200 meters of water resistance. Unscrewing the crown is easy to do even with gloved hands. And manually winding Seiko's in-house 6R35 movement is quite smooth for this particular model. Now with this movement in the intermediate position, you can quickly cycle through the day of the month, and then if you pull it to extremity, you can hack or stop the seconds hand, and then you can set to any reference time that you would like. Now on the topic of the movement used inside these 63 mass reissues, in the past I've harshly criticized the 6R35 because I found it had wide positional variation in terms of accuracy. Seiko does rate these as -15 to +25 seconds per day. I got lucky with this one. Daily deviation has settled in nicely at about +5 seconds per day, and you're getting about a 70-hour power reserve with this particular movement. It pivots on 24 joules, ticks away at 3 hertz, and of course I mentioned you can manually wind the movement, and it has stop seconds and a quick set date as well. So here's a quick in-studio wrist shot just to show you how this Seiko SPB147 sits on my 7.5-inch wrist. Now if you're curious, the weight of this watch on the Jubilee bracelet sized up for my wrist comes in at a sweet spot of 166 grams, because I typically like my divers to weigh between 150 and 170 grams. And again, you can easily accessorize and swap out the bracelet for multiple straps. Now before wrapping up the video, I do like to talk about potential points for improvement. I do think that the bezel action can be a little bit more refined than it is. In terms of a date cutout at the 3 o'clock position, it is very simple, and it would have been nice if they framed it or helped step it down. And in terms of pricing, I do think that these Seiko 63 masses are being aggressively priced and really should be more affordable at around the $700 to $800 price range for what you're getting. Again, I do think Seiko needs to improve the positional tolerances for their 6R series movements, or start using their 8L calibers in a lot more of their watches that approach $1,000. But all those things being said, I really like the warm tones that this watch throws out. To me, this is a very good, affordable alternative to a Tudor Black Bay 58 due to similar dimensions, the gilt accents on the dial, and even having a similar 70 hours of power reserve with the in-house movement. But as always, I'd also love to hear your guys' feedback in the comments section of the video. What are your thoughts on these Seiko 63 mass divers, and would you consider picking up the SPB147? Now, if you do like the content, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. It does help out a lot. And as always, I can't wait to catch you guys in the next video.